So, I did the usual spiel now with spoiler talk. So the Clockwork Kingdom is bloody insane. Holy crap, I loved it so much. First of all, the king. So the king is this machine which is controlled by a series of complicated spells, and he possesses essentially godly powers. He can control the people, cloning them, altering them, fuzzing up their memories, but it doesn't stop there. He can simply will people and things out of existence if he wants to, and people just forget. How crazy is that? And yet even then it's not all because of the corruption. It was obvious he was behind it, but the way it is presented and how people didn't understand it was glorious. So such a hideous side effect, and the fact that they constantly scream and cipher it in their cries of agony. Wow. I wish I could come up with something like that. I would be so proud of myself. Okay, but when the actual horoscope project happens, and what an idea there too. I loved how small it started and how huge it got, and how it all looped right back to Afra. I adore this. Only problem is that the whole thing left me unsatisfied. So there was no way to just take Afra by the hand and guide her toward the leg. Or at least wait for her to deal with a revelation. Or hell, anything. It's like everything I did had no impact. The story was cool, but... the school was cool. No, actually, story was amazing, but... there is simply nothing happening in the end. Also, I don't know what the hell is going on with me, but I feel like I ate too much fatty food, so I keep burping and just being genuinely disgusting. Anyway, I get it. It's the scope again. I can imagine what a bloody nightmare it is. Think about how many stages there are. What if the necklace is given to a daughter? What if Alec gets it back? What if Afra doesn't get told at the end of a Mad King quest? What if horoscope is fully revealed but the player sides with Sunil? What? There are so many branches, and I can't imagine how much work it is to put all of those into the game. And it's especially terrible to make because vast majority of players will never see the other options. Hell, most probably won't even complete the quest. I've seen the charts. I know that a lot of games have achievement for starting the game and like 50% of people get it. Still, it's a disappointment. And the dreams. Forgot to talk about those. Another emotional storyline, and what an ingenious idea. Get people hooked on it. And then they get addicted. Some overdose, and then their families willingly commit the poor addicts to create more dreams. What an insanely malicious system. Perfect drugs. And how pleasant and welcoming the stuff are. I can just imagine something like this in real life. So deliciously evil. Anyway, I almost wish the Clockwork Kingdom was just the entire game. Just bigger and more detailed. It's so bloody good. The rest is definitely worse. The village is forgettable. I actually totally forgot about the giant monster and the mercs until I had to rewrite this. Sucks how they just turn hostile, but never really... how they turn hostile if sneaking, but you are never actually exposed. So you know how in games you usually can sneak in and... well, as long as nobody sees you, nobody's hostile. No, it doesn't work here. You're just instantly gonna piss them off, even if they don't see you. I hate that. Definite oversight, and the resolution to that quest and the overall storyline is just kinda meh. The sacrifice for crops was disappointing too, but I already mentioned that. Wanted to see more, again. And by the way, I sacrificed him, I let him kill himself. I wonder how people feel about that. I kinda try to be evil, but then I kinda get lost in my motivations. Then Halo has some cool moments, like that cursed castle. I liked the idea of this endless misery to keep the sun alive, but now everything else is falling apart, and the player can give the sun that same poison. There is just no winning here. I love the depressing stories like this, although the whole thing played out too fast, and I wish there was an actual village, and not just 4 people including King, Son and the Wiccan. The Hidden God story was a little abrupt too. Felt like the search was 10 times longer than the actual story. Finding my way was just a nightmare. But it was mainly due to the fact that I didn't have a map then. With one it probably would have been so much easier. And speaking of, whatever. I didn't get to that place until I got through most of the game. I finished Clockwork, Endless and basically all the side quests. And only then I realized that there is just a tiny chunk of a map that I never went to. By then the enemies were a joke, and the rewards were a bigger joke. But the reveal of her origin was pretty nice. And the mansion story was disappointing. Although the fact that it was even there is nice. I just wish it was bigger. And also, I never slept in the mansion, so I accidentally missed most of it. Oh, and the thieves. I randomly get stopped and to deliver something. Charm a guard and get recruited. Then I'm told to steal something from a jerk, and by that point I already have explored everything, so I simply walked into the front door and took it. Then the quest ends. That's it. I just described the entire storyline. I feel like I missed some trigger somewhere. It just stops. Anyway, I wanted to bring it up earlier. The mercs, and the main story as a whole. Honestly, it sucked. I still believed I enjoyed a lot more than Skyrim. I don't get how you can make fighting a dragon in Valhalla boring, but somehow they managed that. Delusions, though, is a bit of a different problem. So I adored Clockwork. I liked parts of Halo, and Endless had cool moments too, but about that later. The main story felt irrelevant to the rest of this. What gave it gravity were the mercs. It was obvious that they were forced to be these important characters, but they had so little to say, and even less to do. They are framed as these badasses who go on missions with a player, but they just stand there and say a few lines. They tell, but they don't show. Amber is the only one who does something, but the combat, and you already said, combat is already a joke, so that was irrelevant. The only impactful part, well, okay, two impactful parts. The most impactful one is when the Duchess blocks the enemy soldiers. Problem is that they were a clump of generic goons, and I had plenty of bombs. If she just let me, I could deal with them in a second without a problem. There was simply not enough time and care spent on this. I just didn't get any options to impact what is happening at this point. And the second one was Frost talking about Sam. Their relationship was strange and interesting, and I wish them the best. Vela in general is also a mess. She's built up to be this swashbuckling badass, the person who is responsible for these dreadful crimes in the past. But not much more than that. Then she appears for 5 seconds, and the narration suddenly turns her into a demigod who tries to reshape reality. Yeah, if I said it was a little jarring, I would mean completely. It's a cliché setup for a cartoon villain, but then the Whispers of Ghosts side quest happens, and in my eyes that redeems the whole thing. She gave so much background to this whole story. I loved it, and the reveal as to who the ghost truly is, that was amazing. But there's the thing, I liked her so damn much. I cared about her a ton. And again, I'm talking about the ghost here, not Vela. Vela I still don't care about. After that quest, I was determined to help her in any way I can. Her and her other self. So I refused to kill the godling. And after that, she got arrested. I was disappointed, but again, I didn't get any options to do anything. So I decided, you know what? My only way to help her is to merge with that thing, and possibly impact her fate. And I did. And the resolution was like a sentence. It's criminal. I don't know what the writer was thinking, but if you make me care so damn much about the character, give me a lengthy goddamn resolution. It was still something, but fuck, I want more. And I want more ways to interact with her in general. More side quests, more dialogue, choices. Please, let me help this woman. Anyway, Endless Realms. So I feel like The Mines was a pretty good way to describe everything wrong with the zone. It was an attempt to do something as cool as Clockwork, but it was an attempt to do something... and it was also an attempt to do something lengthy. But it all just falls flat. So I sided with a god, and I guess Inquisitor vanished somewhere. Only other result is talking to some random guy in the city and apologizing or insulting him. I didn't step foot in the city until resolving the whole thing, so I might have missed some story there. Still, it's disappointing. That crystal god never came up again. Then there was the Entombed one. First of all, what the hell was that dungeon? It was like 2 rooms. I expected at least something more. 2. Again, resolution. And then I'll repeat myself, and I know I praised the scope, but I also said these people knew what they were doing. I wish they had a bigger budget, because they sure as hell can create something wonderful. And I wish they did more. It's as simple as that. So a tomb. I very much enjoyed the idea that the king, who everyone believes is responsible, is actually not. In fact, he is just sitting there, useless, forgotten and pointless. It's the queen or her spirit who is doing it. Parallel with Confessor, by the way. So this version of the Queen is not melancholic, and I like to believe that it's her real self, in fact. She's tired, and she's tired of her endless reign. She's tired of her undying, miserable subjects, and she's tired of life. So she wants to end it all. But most importantly, she also has hope, and I chose to nurture that. It's just that I wish I could see a bigger impact. I want to go back and let her destroy it all, just to see if I can see the difference. Then there was the Duchess. I actually love the idea of the hand being the only thing left. How crazy is that? And there are also moments of her talking about it. The idea of endless in general is cool as hell. This is how undead should be done. They frequently show up in the media, but it's either mindless husks or just a miserable pile of people. And it's not shown, it's told. Here they have every reason to be miserable, hideous, falling apart, constantly ravenously hungry to consume flesh, even of their loved ones, as they cry themselves into oblivion. What a great morbid story. Which brings me to a gem, the crowning achievement of that whole zone. The ethics of eating flesh. By the way, I also forgot to mention the worm. That storyline was complete shit. You just go around to dungeons and collect one item and then bring it back to a worm who eats it. What kind of side quest is that? That's like a fetch quest from an MMO. That sucked. Anyway, so the ethics of eating flesh. I know I said I adored Clockwork Kingdom, but it was down to the story. I liked what was told and what happened in the past, but it's this quest what affected me emotionally. So facts. Endless are a race of bloodthirsty undead monsters. If not given flesh, they turn genocidal. They simply can't resist it, so they have to eat meat somehow. A scientist comes up with a way to farm it. Some people refuse it and the results never taste as good, but at least nobody get hurt. Or do they? As it turns out, flesh develops sentience, and it couldn't communicate with anyone because it's the living in the land of the dead, and it can only talk to the living. So when the player walks up to it, they are in fact the first being to talk to that flesh. And this flesh is simply scared. It doesn't want to get hurt anymore. It doesn't want to get eaten. It doesn't want any of this. It never asked for this. Yeah, I can't do a Jensen voice. I never asked for this. But it endlessly exists now, growing and getting consumed. This gets revealed, and some people use it as an excuse to cause genocide again, and get people tortured, but none of it matters. What is important is the choice given to the player. Let the flesh live, possibly survive in some way, but likely continue to be a miserable pile of meat for others to feast upon. Or kill it. I can't remember the last time a game presented me with a choice this difficult. This is genius. It's essentially a child, life created out of nothing, and the player can kill it to prevent genocide. I have no words to describe how smart and emotionally draining this is. I had to stop for a minute and just sit down. Look up at the sky and not think of anything. Just breathe. This is why I believe this game is great. This is why it's so brilliant. The exploration is the meat, but it's the story that truly seals the deal. I wish these people would create more, and I can't wait to see what else do they have in store.